Welcome to my thoughts on The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 13, The Same Boat. The episode is rated TVMA, so this video will be spoilers for the episode and everything live-action Walking Dead leading up to it. Not for anything that came out after this episode first premiered, and another episode that I absolutely fucking loved. So, I'm gonna start by saying, if you haven't already watched Cat Black's videos talking about Brian Gnome's fetish, if you're familiar with Cat Black, you already know that she isn't really kink shaming. It's like serious analysis. I found it quite interesting. And yeah, this did such an amazing job of this. I mean, it's essentially a chamber piece, but bottle episode sort of thing. Yeah, we barely see Rick's survivors. We don't even particularly hear them other than Maggie and Carol, and I really felt like I got a good sense of who the saviors featured in this episode were as people, and it's not looking like they're going to come back. I don't know, I guess flashback is not impossible, but other than that, and let's see, yeah, very, very smart to start by just showing, another perspective on the end of the episode before this one. Just the capture of Maggie and Carol. And honestly, from right away, I really appreciated how many female characters there were here, and how there isn't this sense of, that's something you see in a bunch of American media. Thankfully less these days, but, if there's a lot of women in a place, then, it has to constantly be this thing of like, women are not very serious, or they're, all they're going to talk about is clothes, makeup, and boys, and shit like that. It's completely absurd. If you have female friends, no, they're, I was going to say just as, frankly, in my experience, they're more capable of focusing on important shit than a lot of, at least young men. When I was in school as a child and teenager, used to, it was mostly the girls who were able to focus on things and not get distracted by completely pointless shit. Anyway, let's see, and right away we see the strategizing between them. They're thinking about, okay, what makes the most sense to do. And yeah, like the fact that they understand, no, if we stay and just hand over, Rick and the survivors are gonna kill us. And I don't know, there's just something to the fact that ultimately is what ends up happening. They, by the end of the episode, every savior that we've encountered so far is dead. And I think the POV shots were absolutely fucking inspired. Like their heads are covered, and we can see their feet and some of the stuff on the ground to get a sense of, and they drive for a while, but it's very difficult to get a lay of the land for a little bit. I think really throughout the episode we only see parts of the supposed safe house that Maggie and Carol see, and that works really well. We are kept in the dark as they are. It's very claustrophobic, and I think that does bring us nicely to Maggie and Carol do try to cut loose, foot loose, as soon as they have a chance, but ultimately doesn't quite work, so they have to think of something else. And I thought it worked really well. For a while I wasn't entirely sure. Like, I thought maybe Carol was just pretending to, like, for like a sympathy kind of thing, get them to lower their guard. But honestly, by the end, best I can tell, she genuinely was. She did not want to kill another human being, which I do really appreciate. Morgan is having some effect on her. We saw her count, the number of people she's killed, or update the count rather, in the episode before this one. And yeah, it is getting to her, which is just, human nature. We don't like the idea of killing each other. And I think, you can just look at how much like war propaganda and other, essentially if someone is trying to kill or at least gravely harm a group, they will try to, or individual, they will try to dehumanize them. And I think that does bring us to the, yeah, so Carol seemingly hyperventilates, and, I appreciate that this is not one of those where I've always found it kind of silly when someone is like trying to shout something, but they've got a gag in their mouth, and it's like, well, yeah, we can clearly make out the words. Like, that's not how a gag would work. Or I guess it's, maybe some of the time it's supposed to be like a, incompetent gag, maybe. Anyway, the, yeah, they manage, they take it, they ungag Carol. And, the redhead's talking about how weak and pathetic she is, and just like, I thought they did a fantastic job of just making us despise the saviors, And let's see, yeah, the thing about, she gets the, what's it called? The I cannot believe I'm blanking on the prayer beads. Is that what they're called? Maybe something along those lines, And let's see, the yeah, and the smoker makes fun of her for it, and yeah, again, just like, yeah, they're so wonderfully despicable. We cannot stand the saviors. Like, even if you weren't sold from the Polaroids, the trophies in the episode before this one. Anyway, I believe that covers the... Oh, right. Did I want to... No, yeah, I think that is it for that part. Yeah, I thought it worked well, this thing of, so... Yeah, his name is Donnie. They said that enough times that I remember it. Yeah, they point out that the reason he didn't kill at least one of, either Maggie or Carol is that he was distracted because he found them attractive, And yeah, that is, it's very, very true. There's so many, I think that is part of why a lot of misogynists insist that men are inherently superior to women. It's because deep down they know, like, we're super not. Like you want to talk, okay, upper body strength, like, there's something there, but that's not super important for, modern society. Like, you really want to talk about, like, yeah, it's just it's the fact that we men are supposed to be superior because of, being physically stronger, when, like, what's that good for? Getting into fights, ruining your life? Like, fucking ridiculous. But the let's see. So yeah, they talk about, what are they gonna do with Donnie, and this fucker, he's like, I mean, it's so tight. You cut off my circulation. Yeah, that's what a tourniquet is, though. That's like literally the point. Like, if she hadn't done that, she might as well not tie it off at all, and you'd be bleeding to death because the arm has, fuck are those called again? Some of those major veins that, there are people, like, if you are sufficiently injured in your arm and you're bleeding and it's not stopped, you can bleed out from that, and yeah, Maggie tries to say, hey, this happened, yeah, I know what will happen if you don't. He's not going to last 30 minutes. And the redhead's just like, 30 minutes is how it's going to be. And I think that is when we get the... Yeah, so, yeah, Donnie helps make my point about, men not being able to... A lot of men not being able to focus. And, I mean, listen, literally every one of the saviors there is furious with Maggie and Carol. But the only one of them who can't control themselves is the one guy. And not only does he assault them, he also hits the redhead. Just like, this motherfucker. And, let's see. Yeah, it was really tense when they're fighting back against him, because they can only do so much with all the, their hands are literally tied. And yeah, goddamn, when he like kicked Carol repeatedly, what a fucking asshole. Like, just, yeah. And, Carol relates it to Ed. And even after Red makes fun of her for that, later on, she's still telling her, just run, just go. And she won't. Forcing Carol's hand. And Maggie, right, also the bit with, it's not good for the baby. And then they talk about, like, it's not very smart to... And I loved Maggie's comeback, like, when was it ever smart? Women used to die in childbirth. Like, and they always thought that the world was ending. And let's see, I think... Doesn't that pretty well bring us to... So yeah, they take Maggie off into another room, and it's explained about the finger, and we find out, she's the one, or her boyfriend was one of the ones, went splody. And it's, yeah, the saviors also realize, oh, these are the ones who did that. I think pretty much. Yeah, so, and we find out that the smoker, there's the thing about those things will kill you. Oh, that's already, I'm a dead woman walking, which puts us in the same boat. Now, you might think that really demonstrates just how addictive cigarettes are, that, after she's, gotten lung cancer, she's still smoking. I think a case could be made that that's, she almost might as well. I don't know. Is that too morbid? It's a morbid show. And let's see. I think that pretty much gets us to the... Yeah, so the part where... Yeah, so Carol manages to free herself. Very clever, using the... Yeah, prayer thing. And, yeah, it's like of course they have to find some kind of weapon if they're going to have any chance here. And I really appreciated that Maggie was already in the process of freeing herself when Carol got there. No damsels in distress here. And we got a couple of new names for walkers. One of them was growlers. And the... yeah, that's also really clever. It's been a while since anybody checked this place, so now there's a bunch of walkers there, but they are like, well, it's free security. I think the thing that in this entire episode that made me hate the saviors the most was when a baby was referred to as a snack for walkers. And let's see. I think that pretty much gets us to the... let's see, there's at least one more thing that I really want to make sure to say. Yeah, really, really clever, the thing about, tying Donnie the walker up to and the smoker comes in, is bitten, and cries out, "God damn it, Donnie," which I guess means she maybe just watched a movie and was not the biggest fan of. I mean, it could be Donnie Darko, Donnie Brasco, and let's see. I think does that? Yeah, and so they get their hands on a gun, and just incredibly tense. I love that the redhead almost immediately after realizes, they're out there now, so it's this, very effective, and we, the tension is rising, and we already know, those guys are on, more saviors are coming, and I think that brings us to, I also really appreciated, I love when the villains or antagonists are also tactical. The thing about, like, they sound close. There was no static on the walkie. Yeah, that is, and let's see. Yeah, and they, by the end we realized, no, they actually had picked up the trail, like, genuinely impressive. But then, Daryl is right there, so it's not a huge surprise. And I think that pretty well gets us to the... Yeah, so, enough about the walkie. They have to walk down the whole wall way of walkers. And that was forced even for me. Anyway, genuinely trying. Carol is really trying to not kill the redhead. And talks about, she's killed 18 people. Oh, wait, 20. And, them taking out some walkers, and the part, I was really relieved that no one fired there at the end when Stephen Yeun, Glenn, and Maggie were, because they both pointed their guns. They weren't sure who was going to be on the other side. And so I was going to make a joke about how, don't let the name scare you, Jimmy. It's not really a kill room. It's more of a, but then it kind of became a kill room. The only way that door would be more appropriate is if it said oven. And that was genuinely clever, Carol being like, well, we got to do this, we're going to have to pull a adult Kevin McAllister. That's the only way we're walking out of here. And said, meet us in the kill room. And I feel like there's at least one more thing that I really want to make sure to say, but what on earth was it? Let's see. Love the part where the redhead is like talking about her backstory, and maybe a little bit pitching sequel to Send Help, possibly one set in the Evil Dead universe, but yeah, and the thing about you're supposed to want to be the coffee, but coffee, that was just something my boss drank over and over. No matter how much I brought him, he still wanted more. It was kind of like the MCU Punisher in that way, honestly. And so she fucking killed him. Although, the very first time she tried, it was actually, didn't go exactly as had hoped, and she and two of her co-workers had to steal a corpse, and I think that's as much of a reference as I can make without starting to spoil that movie. Anyway, I think, but yeah, and she said, she stopped counting or caring when she hit double digits. And which, I mean, that is, like, I believe that is psychologically accurate. After a while, you don't, it's just too much for the brain to keep, being equally upset each time. Then again, if she did count, I feel like there's probably at least one zombie-themed restaurant where she could get a comp meal. And yeah, the ending with, was Negan there or here? Both. I'm Negan. And then Rick shoots him, and you can tell Carol's face, like she's not okay. And I can imagine that she's going to tell, Rick that, hey, before they said, we're all Negan, which is an interesting. So yeah, I definitely have a theory that I suppose I shouldn't share, just in case if someone's watching this video and hasn't watched past this. I will withhold my theory for now. And yeah, I think that does cover absolutely everything. So I'm just real quick going to mentally fast forward through the entire episode just to make absolutely certain. And while I do that, yeah, not much left of the season. Yeah, very much anticipating. I'm honestly not entirely sure what's going to happen next. And yeah, I think yeah, I loved how, like, throughout the episode I kept sitting there thinking, what is going to be the thing that helps free them? I genuinely was, thinking, like, I mean, the thing is that so much of the time there was at least one gun pointed at least one of them, and there was at least one other person in the room as well. So it's like, there's no way that you're going to win if you do, but, like, for example, the cigarette, I was thinking, I mean, I've seen at least once someone use a cigarette to burn the hand of the one that feeds them. I mean, keeps them captive. But yeah, and it's also like, by this point, no fucking way you're going to keep, any of Rick's survivors in, in any kind of cage for particularly long, Let's see. Not after Terminus. Yeah, I believe that covers it all. Yeah, I like the part about how, she says that she doesn't love him, he just keeps her bed warm. And let's see, yeah, as usual, even though, like, there's not a huge number of zombie kills in the episode, but they still manage some really cool stuff. And yeah, the thing about, like, oh, we'll leave the walkers here, they're security guards, and then they end up actually being threats to the saviors themselves. I did actually think at first that they were going to leave that one walker there in the middle of the room, to break Maggie and Carol. And yeah, as usual, I'd be happy to watch the guest actors here in something else as well. Yeah, the cigarette thing, good bit of setup and payoff, because the lighter is how she lights the, there at the end, she's like, come on, baby, light my fire. And the little fucker comes through for her. Yeah, just kind of fucking loved the thing about, like, you think you're better than us? You're killers too. And Carol says, well, you approached us on the road. And I also really love, they're like, those fuckers. I knew it was, they practically come out and say, it was just a matter of time before they fucked up, And one of them says, I bet they laid it on real thick too. And it's like, kinda, yeah. They were really, they knew there were cameras on them. And, yeah, pointing out, because like that is, the attack at the end of the episode for this one. Technically, Rick's survivors had not been directly threatened since that explosion, and we find out in this episode they didn't even know who did that. They weren't like just about to find them, because like if they had been, they would have said so. They would have been like, oh, just you wait, we know exactly where your camp is, because it's like, they're saying threatening things throughout the entire episode, so clearly they did not know. And at least not this faction. I suppose it's possible there's more than one faction of saviors. Yeah. Withholding my theory for now. Anyway, yeah, and the first ones they killed them in their sleep, And then once they're like shooting, okay, yeah, it's self-defense, but you are in their place, you went in there with guns, and yeah. Let's see, I think, yeah, I continue to really appreciate the way the characters will affect each other on this show. I don't think there's really any major character who's just static. And yeah, I think that does pretty much cover. So they do say at one point there's a sign. What was it, like something like God is dead, or I forget, but it did sound somewhat atheistic. So I suppose it's possible that the theory I'm about to put forth is not quite accurate. And I certainly understand if someone would lose their faith over this kind of thing. But when the smoker sees the prayer beads, rosary, is that what it's called? Something like that. She says, oh, you're one of those. Now, it's possible that she is herself an atheist and is saying, Christian, which I guess makes her more of an anti-theist than an atheist. Listen, like, I am an atheist. I used to be an anti-theist. Nowadays, I'm not going to be like, you're one of them. If I see someone like, yeah. But yeah. I don't know. I feel like there's a certain chance that she is, or maybe just was, Smoker was a Protestant. So, yeah, it's true what they sing. The Catholics hate the Protestants, and the Protestants hate the Catholics.